I've lived in Colombia most of my 52 years, since I was 2. There, I learned about community and the world around me and about myself. In one early memory, I'm about 7, attending a play with my Brownie Scouts troupe. It's an historical play, and 2 adults on the stage discuss their treatment of a third character who looks like me, whom they're enslaving. It's a true story, but it's not her story, because we don't hear her voice in any deep way. By the time I was 7, I was already learning about strength in storytelling and which stories we choose to remember and how that empowers or diminishes a people. Before I was born, the South Carolina State Legislature responds to the Civil Rights Movement by flying over their state house a Confederate flag. Soon, the nationwide civil unrest of '67, known as the Long, Hot Summer, sees protests arising due to injustices against black people in upwards of 150 cities with 80-plus dead, property damage worth tens of millions, and entire neighborhoods burned to the ground. That year, urban planner James Rouse testifies in front of the U.S. Senate Finance Committee, saying, quote, "The task of making the American city a fit place to grow our people is the #1 priority of our civilization." That's the year he founds Columbia. Nearly 50 years later, with the Confederate flag still flying high over the South Carolina State House grounds after decades of requests to remove it, and 9 dead black bodies shot by a racist in Charleston, freedom fighter Bree Newsom scales the flagpole, the image of her black female body with her long dreadlock hair unhinging the flag herself, becoming a symbol of empowerment, making Newsom an icon of today's black activism. Bree Newsom had grown up in Columbia, Maryland. She follows a history of empowered black Columbians, promoting freedom and other ideals central to our town's founding. My big idea is to write and publish untold stories of Columbia's black history makers, spreading the word about monumental figures, preserving our history, empowering future generations of Howard Countyans. I'm writing a memoir to be launched with support from Maryland State Arts Council and Bus Boys and Poets. I propose I write an appendix to that book, leverage my contacts as an acclaimed storyteller, and take Howard County's stories on the road, giving book talks and presentations locally and beyond, donating books to libraries and community groups, catalyzing discussions about numerous people like Bree Newsom, like her father, Reverend Dr. Clarence Newsom, once interim pastor of Columbia's first Black Baptist church. He became a Howard University dean before being named president of Shaw University, the South's oldest historically black college, and then becoming president of the National Underground Railroad Freedom Center. The founding president of that globally known center had been Dr. Spencer Crew, a resident of Columbia since the 70s, co-leading a black mentorship program there in the 80s. By the 90s, he's named director of Smithsonian's National Museum of American History, becoming both its youngest and its first black director, and now interim director of Smithsonian's National Museum of African American History and Culture. In the 70s, Oprah Winfrey discovers her life's calling by co-hosting her very first talk show while living in my hometown. When Bree Newsom removes that flag, she replaces it with a new symbol, a black woman, empowered, holding that flag unhinged. Howard County doesn't have a Confederate flag flying high. What it has are untold stories. There's a silent history waiting to be heard. I'd like to be the one to tell it. It'd be a gift to my 7-year-old self. Thank you.